New York has never been a city. It's been a battlefield wearing a skyline. A place where dreams collide with ambition, where hope dissolves into strategy, and where the crowd, millions strong, becomes an army of emotion waiting to be led. Machiavelli would have walked these streets with a quiet smile, because here, more than anywhere, his philosophy is alive. Not in kings or tyrants, but in campaigns, movements, rising figures, leaders shaped not by lineage, but by narrative. Power in New York doesn't rise through force. It rises through perception, through the rhythm of neighborhoods, through the symbols that ignite belief, through the whispers that travel faster than truth. Every borough is a faction, every district a kingdom, every crowd a force waiting to be captured or lost. And when a new leader emerges, not from wealth, not from old power, but from the pulse of the people, the city shifts. Its balance trembles. Its story rewrites itself. Because New York is where modern democracy becomes something else. Not a system, but an arena. Not a process, but a contest of narrative, identity, and timing. It is the one place where a single election can feel like a revolution, where one victory can echo through the streets like prophecy, where the very idea of power transforms into something fluid, something psychological, something Machiavellian. Here, strength is subtle, influence is engineered, and the line between leader and illusion grows beautifully thin. The city rewards those who sense its mood before it speaks, those who read its silence more than its noise, those who can turn empathy into momentum and momentum into inevitability. This is not politics. This is warfare without weapons, conquest without armies, victory without blood. This is the perfect battlefield for modern power. And Machiavelli, if he stood here today, under the shadow of these towers, would whisper the same warning he gave 5 centuries ago. Those who understand the nature of the people will command the future. New York does not create ordinary people. It creates extremes, the desperate and the determined, the invisible and the unforgettable, the defeated and the dangerously ambitious. It is a city built on contradictions, and contradictions are the soil where power grows fastest. Machiavelli would recognize this energy instantly. He came from Florence, a city of merchants and mercenaries, artists and assassins, saints and schemers, a place where brilliance and brutality lived in the same alleys. New York is Florence stretched to the size of an empire. More lights, more factions, more hunger, more wolves. This city rewards velocity. It punishes hesitation. It listens to courage and laughs at caution. Here, ambition is not a whisper. It is a roar echoing between buildings. Every subway car carries 3 destinies, one rising, one falling, one pretending not to see the truth. Power does not just exist here, it circulates. It flows through neighborhoods like a current of electricity, charging anyone reckless enough to touch it. And every so often, someone does. Someone steps forward, not with entitlement, but with timing, the one currency New York respects more than money. Machiavelli called this verk, the ability to bend chaos without breaking under its weight, to seize the moment before the moment realizes it is being seized. New York calls it something simpler, a rise. Every era has one, a figure who captures the city's instability and turns it into momentum, not just through policy or vision, but through presence. The quiet gravity that pulls crowds because the crowd wants to believe in something that breathes. New York is a city of watchers. Before it trusts, it tests. Before it follows, it observes. Its people may love hope, but they worship proof. A promise is nothing unless the city feels the pulse behind it, that unmistakable energy that whispers, "I will not break before you." That is why leaders born here are different. They are carved from pressure. They are sharpened by noise. They learn early that the world will not wait and fate will not negotiate. Machiavelli would admire this. He believed that fortune favors those who prepare for her storms, those who build dams before the river swells, those who see the flood long before the clouds darken. And New York is a city that floods often, not with water, with emotion, with outrage, with hope, with disillusionment, with the dizzying desire for something new. This is why the city becomes a battlefield for modern power, not because its people seek domination, but because they seek direction. They crave someone who can hold their chaos without flinching, someone who understands the city's moods the way a strategist understands terrain. In this landscape, leadership is not given, it is hunted. It is stalked through the alleys of attention, fought for in the shadows of forgotten buildings, and claimed only by those fearless enough to let the city judge them. Because New York does judge. It judges brutally, harshly, ruthlessly. It will crown you in the morning and crucify you by nightfall. It will love you loudly and abandon you quietly. It will celebrate your rise and mock your fall. But if you endure, if you withstand its tests without losing your stride, New York becomes yours. Not in ownership, but in obedience. The city respects resilience more than perfection. It follows those who do not bend. It listens to those who do not plead. And inside this harshness is a secret Machiavelli understood well. The crowd is moved not by kindness, but by conviction. Not by softness, but by certainty. Not by morality, but by momentum. People in New York do not want a hero. They want a center of gravity, someone who stabilizes their fury and focuses their dreams, someone who can stand still while the world burns around them. That is the essence of the modern prince. Not a ruler in the old sense, but a conductor, someone who shapes energy instead of issuing commands, who organizes the city's emotional chaos into a narrative that people can believe in. Because the truth is simple. New York is too big, too wild, too alive to follow someone weak. It demands a leader who knows how to move through uncertainty with a calm that feels like strategy. A leader who looks at millions and sees not a burden, but a weapon. This is why New York becomes the perfect battlefield. Because victory here is not about force. It is about psychology. It is about reading the crowd the way Machiavelli read courts, their passions, their fears, their illusions, their hunger for symbols over solutions. Power in this city belongs to those who can turn themselves into a symbol, not of moral purity, but of emotional resonance, a living embodiment of the city's contradictions. And when such a figure emerges, someone who reflects the city's diversity, its ambition, its wounds, its defiance, the battlefield shifts. New York crowns them not with gold, but with belief. This is the battlefield Machiavelli foresaw, a place where wars are fought not with armies, but with attention, not with violence, but with narrative, not with fear, but with the manipulation of hope. And in New York, a city where every soul carries both hope and hunger, the one who masters this battlefield does not just win. They redefine the meaning of power itself. Power does not rise by accident, not here, not now, not in a city like New York. It is built, piece by piece, gesture by gesture, moment by moment. It is engineered with the precision of architecture and the subtlety of seduction. People imagine influence as something mystical, charisma, destiny, personality. Machiavelli would laugh at the naivety. He knew better. Power is a structure, a design, a system built from the invisible materials of human psychology. And nowhere is this architecture more advanced or more unforgiving than in New York. The city doesn't reward ideas. It rewards the illusion that the idea is inevitable. Asterisk, asterisk. This is the first principle of modern power. In New York, every street is a stage, and every candidate, activist, entrepreneur, or rising leader is an actor performing in a drama written by public sentiment. You don't win by being right. You win by being recognized. And you don't become recognized through noise. You become recognized through design. Machiavelli understood this long before screens existed. Appearances are not mirrors of reality. They are the tools that shape it. Today, the architecture of influence is built from 4 pillars: narrative, symbolism, timing, and proximity. Let's walk through the city the way Machiavelli would, and see how these pillars hold the entire structure. 1. Narrative. The story that rules the crowd. New York doesn't follow leaders. It follows stories. The city is addicted to myth, the underdog who rises, the reformer who breaks through, the visionary who sees what others ignore. These myths repeat because the crowd needs them. Hope requires shape. Fear requires a name. Ambition requires a face. Influence begins the moment someone realizes this. A rising figure doesn't need the best ideas. They need the cleanest narrative. Something the city can repeat in a sentence, believe in a heartbeat, defend in an argument. Machiavelli said that people follow what they perceive, not what they understand. In New York, perception is the throne. 2. Symbolism. The geometry of identity. Watch any rally. Watch any movement. Symbols speak louder than speeches. A logo, a color, a phrase, a moment captured in a single photograph. These are not decorations. They are psychological anchors. New York is too fast for philosophy, too busy for nuance. It deals in symbols because symbols bypass thought and reach the emotional core. A raised fist, a quiet smile, a certain posture, a certain silence. This is the geometry of influence, the way the body becomes architecture, the way the image becomes meaning. Machiavelli advised rulers to seem more than to be. In the modern city, seeming is not deception, it is strategy. 3. Timing. The weapon stronger than truth. There is no city in the world more sensitive to timing than New York. One moment too early, and no one listens. One moment too late, and no one cares. The city moves in emotional cycles: frustration, hope, exhaustion, desire. The one who senses these shifts before they appear publicly controls the battlefield. This is what Machiavelli meant by virtue: the ability to align oneself with the moment, to understand what must be done now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. The modern leader who waits for the perfect moment doesn't wait at all. They prepare quietly, moving pieces behind the scenes, allowing the world to believe that destiny chose them, when in truth, they crafted their entrance like an artist. In New York, timing isn't part of the strategy. It is the strategy. 4. Proximity. Power through presence. Influence in this city is not about platform. It's about presence. Not physical presence, but psychological proximity. You must feel familiar enough to trust, but distant enough to respect. Visible enough to be recognized, yet mysterious enough to remain compelling. This is a balance the city demands. Lean too close, and you become ordinary. Stay too far, and you become irrelevant. True influence sits perfectly in between, intimate yet untouchable. Machiavelli warned princes to remain unknowable at their core. Not hidden, just unreadable. A figure people admire because they cannot fully grasp him. New York respects this type of presence. It rewards leaders who reveal just enough to seem human, but never enough to seem predictable. The blueprint of modern power. Combine narrative, symbolism, timing, and proximity, and you get the architecture of influence. The invisible fortress that rising leaders build without stone or steel. A fortress that protects them from missteps, from scandal, from misunderstanding, from irrelevance. New York does not love leaders. It tests them. It dissects them. It devours those who fail to build this architecture in time. Those who survive become something else. Not politicians, not activists, not reformers, but archetypes. Symbols of the city's identity. Reflections of its contradictions. Instruments of its frustration and hope. They are the ones who mastered the architecture of influence. without ever admitting they studied it. Power in New York is not seized. It is constructed, engineered, shaped like a cathedral of belief. Machiavelli would look at this city and see not chaos, but design, not accidents, but strategy, not democracy, but choreography. Because New York, for all its noise, all its freedom, all its chaos, remains exactly what Machiavelli always understood the world to be. A place where those who understand the architecture of influence rule those who don't. The crowd believes it wants freedom, but what it truly wants is certainty. Machiavelli understood this long before modern democracy existed. He saw that the masses do not fear tyranny, they fear confusion. They fear the weight of choice, the burden of responsibility, the loneliness of independence. And in a city like New York, where chaos is constant, where life moves faster than thought, where millions struggle to carve meaning out of noise, certainty becomes a kind of salvation. This is why the crowd seeks a prince. Not a king, not a tyrant, not a deity, but a figure who carries the weight they cannot bear. Someone who stands still when they cannot. Someone who speaks clearly when they stumble over their own doubts. The psychology is ancient. The setting is modern. The instinct is unchanged. New York's people do not want a ruler. They want a center of gravity, a force around which their emotions can orbit. Fear, frustration, hope, anger, ambition. The crowd wants someone who turns these emotions into narrative and narrative into direction. In chaos, guidance feels like freedom, and the one who provides that guidance becomes the prince, even if he never claims the title. The crowd needs meaning more than it needs truth. This is the first law of political psychology. People are not moved by facts. They're moved by stories that make their fears less frightening and their struggles feel significant. Machiavelli said the people are easily deceived because they long to believe, not because they are weak, but because existence is heavy and belief is light. In New York, this longing becomes visible. You see it in rallies, in speeches, in the silence before results are announced, in the faces of people who whisper, "I hope he wins. I hope she wins. I hope something changes." Hope is the most addictive substance the city produces, and the crowd follows the one who distributes it best. The crowd seeks a prince because the prince gives them identity. Identity is the modern crown. People today do not want representation. They want reflection. They want to see their fears acknowledged, their struggles validated, their dreams articulated in words they couldn't speak themselves. A rising leader doesn't win support. He inherits emotion. He becomes the vessel for frustrations too vast to manage and aspirations too fragile to express. This is why movements build so quickly in New York. The city is a pressure chamber. Every subway car holds a lifetime of suppressed emotion. Every borough carries stories that have never been told. Every neighborhood trembles with the weight of what it hopes to become. The one who speaks to these emotions does not just gain followers, he gains meaning. He becomes the symbol the city didn't know it was waiting for. The crowd seeks a prince because the prince takes responsibility for their destiny. Modern democracy hides this truth, but the truth pierces through nonetheless. People want to feel like they are choosing their future, yet they do not want to accept blame when the future disappoints them. That contradiction is unbearable. So they elevate someone, a leader, a figure, a face, to carry the risk on their behalf. If things go wrong, the crowd can blame him. If things go right, the crowd can praise themselves. This is the unspoken contract. The prince absorbs the burden of destiny, so the people can feel weightless again. Machiavelli would smirk at this arrangement. He always knew the crowd sought saviors, not systems, stories, not solutions, order, not autonomy. The crowd seeks a prince because the prince simplifies the world. In an age where information overwhelms, opinions multiply, and everyone talks but no one listens, simplicity becomes luxury. The rising leader offers a narrative clean enough to hold on to. Here's what's happening. Here's who's hurting you. Here's what I will do. 3 sentences that reduce the chaos of a city of millions into something emotionally digestible. The prince does not solve complexity. He organizes it. He filters reality so the crowd no longer feels drowned by it. This is not manipulation. It is mercy. The crowd seeks a prince because isolation is unbearable. New York is a paradox. Crowded but lonely, connected but disconnected, vibrant but isolating. People walk past thousands of others each day and feel seen by none. Their names vanish into the noise. Their struggles echo only inside their own minds. When a leader speaks and a person hears their own pain reflected back, a bond forms that is deeper than logic. It is the bond of recognition. The moment a stranger makes you feel understood, that moment is the seed of loyalty. And loyalty, once awakened, is the purest fuel of power. This is why New York produces princes. Not because people want to be ruled, but because they want to be anchored. They want a point of reference in a world too large to grip. They want someone to translate their confusion into clarity. They want a figure who stands tall while they are drowning. Machiavelli knew this psychological hunger. He knew the crowd embraced the prince, not because he was superior, but because they needed him. New York is no different. Here, the prince is not crowned with jewels. He is crowned with expectation, the heaviest crown ever made. A crown built from the hopes of millions who want one thing above all else, a reason to believe that chaos can be tamed. Power in New York does not come freely. It has a price, one almost no one sees, because it is paid not in public moments, but in private silence. People imagine influence as a spotlight, a cheering crowd, a victory speech, a rise. But that is only the surface. The truth is darker, more demanding, more isolating. The modern prince does not ascend because he is loud. He ascends because he is disciplined, because he can endure what others cannot endure, carry what others cannot carry, remain still when others tremble. Machiavelli understood that leadership was not built on brilliance, but on restraint, not on charisma, but on control, the ability to govern the self before governing anything else. And in New York, a city of unrelenting noise, the greatest strength a leader can possess is the ability to remain quiet. The prince learns early that power requires concealment. In this city, nothing is forgiven. Not hesitation, not uncertainty, not weakness. The crowd demands a leader who is human enough to understand their pain, yet distant enough not to drown in it. Someone who empathizes, but does not collapse. Someone who listens, but never reveals too much of himself. Influence is not about transparency. It is about selective exposure. The prince does not show his wounds. He shows his resolve. People think authenticity means revealing everything. Machiavelli would disagree. True authenticity is revealing only what strengthens trust. Everything else belongs to silence. The discipline of the modern prince begins with self-control. He must control his words, because one sentence spoken in anger can become a narrative. He must control his emotions, because the crowd follows calm, not chaos. He must control his impulses, because the moment he reacts, he becomes predictable. And predictability is vulnerability. Power belongs to the one who chooses his responses with surgical precision, who speaks less than others expect, but far more than they understand, who never allows the city to see him rushed, confused, or cornered. Silence becomes a strategy. Pauses become weapons. Self-restraint becomes armor. The prince must resist the temptation of immediate validation. New York rewards noise, the tweet, the headline, the viral moment. But these victories are fragile. They burn quickly, leaving nothing but ashes. The disciplined leader doesn't chase attention. He accumulates it. He lets curiosity grow in the quiet spaces between his appearances. He understands that absence creates mystique, and mystique creates power. Machiavelli warned that too much familiarity breeds contempt. The prince knows this. He remains visible enough to stay relevant, but distant enough to stay respected. This balance is what destroys most rising figures. They chase visibility instead of building longevity. They exhaust themselves performing for an audience that rewards them today and forgets them tomorrow. The prince is not seduced by applause. He studies it. He measures it. He stores it for later use. The prince must sustain momentum without revealing the mechanism. People love the rise but fear the machinery behind it. They want to believe their leader is chosen by destiny, not crafted by strategy. They want to feel that change emerged naturally, not engineered behind closed doors. The disciplined prince never exposes the gears. He hides the negotiations, the sacrifices, the calculations, the alliances. He makes progress look effortless, even when it is agonizing. He makes direction seem intuitive, even when it is planned with mathematical precision. Machiavelli said men judge by what they see, not by what they understand. So the prince allows them to see clarity and hides the complexity. He reveals the result and conceals the reason. This is not deception. This is survival. The prince must endure solitude. New York adores its leaders until it doesn't. The same crowd that celebrates the rise often disappears when the weight becomes unbearable. Power isolates. Influence suffocates. Leadership narrows life into a corridor with fewer and fewer people who understand the pressure. The prince deals with betrayal, loyalty that evaporates, praise that hides expectation, criticism that masks fear. He must stand alone, not because he wants to, but because the position demands it. His supporters carry hope. His advisors carry strategy. But only he carries responsibility. This is the silent price of power. The weight no one applauds, the suffering no one sees. Machiavelli warned that leaders must be prepared to walk alone through storms the people themselves create. The prince must remain unbroken. This is the final test. Not victory, not popularity, not sentiment, endurance. New York pushes its leaders to the limit because the city itself lives on the brink of triumph, the brink of collapse, the brink of reinvention. The prince must mirror this resilience. He must bend without breaking. He must adapt without surrendering. He must feel deeply yet act decisively. He must never let the world see him shaken. The city watches him constantly, not for his perfection, but for his stability, for his ability to absorb the pressure and still stand upright. This is the discipline of the modern prince, to walk through storms with an expression that never trembles. In the end, the prince's rise is not built on charisma or ambition or even talent, but on the strength of what he can withstand. New York crowns only those who survive the test of silence. Power never leaves a city untouched. It reshapes it quietly, not through laws, not through speeches, not through promises, but through the shift in what people believe is possible. Every rise in New York leaves a crack in the old structure and a doorway to something new. This city changes its leaders, but leaders change the city in return. Machiavelli understood this paradox. He wrote that power is not a destination, but a contagion, a force that spreads from one mind to another, from one generation to the next. And in New York, that contagion moves faster than anywhere else. Because here, power is not just influence, it's inheritance, it's momentum. It's a psychological chain reaction. When a new leader emerges in this city, unexpected, unconventional, unpredicted, the city's identity shifts. And once identity shifts, everything else follows. The first change, the people rewrite the story of what leadership looks like. New York is not loyal to tradition. It is loyal to transformation. When someone rises who does not fit the old mold, someone young, someone underestimated, someone who reflects the very streets they walk, the city begins to question its past and imagine a different future. People who once felt invisible start to feel represented. People who once felt powerless start to feel the ground move beneath their feet. This is how legacy begins, not with a victory, but with a shift in who the crowd believes they can become. Machiavelli said fortune favors the bold, but he didn't mean reckless. He meant those bold enough to redefine the frame instead of living inside it. A rising leader in New York does exactly that. By holding power differently, he changes the way the city understands power at all. The second change, the city's factions reorganize themselves. Every borough, every district, every demographic group, they all recalibrate after a major political shift. Allies grow closer. Opponents grow louder. New coalitions appear where old rivalries once existed. This is not chaos. This is adaptation. Machiavelli warned rulers that power is never static. It is liquid. It flows to where it senses opportunity. In New York, that flow is almost tidal. A leader's presence creates new gravity. People begin orbiting differently: activists, donors, communities, commentators, even those who once doubted. Not because they suddenly believe, but because they understand what Machiavelli always knew. Power gathers not where it is loved, but where it is becoming inevitable. The city senses inevitability like an animal senses weather. When it arrives, everything rearranges. The third change, fear and hope both shift shape. Leaders do not inherit emotions. They reshape them. Fear becomes focus. Hope becomes urgency. Anger becomes direction. Ambition becomes collective rather than individual. New York is a city that stores emotions like fuel, waiting for someone to ignite them responsibly. A leader who rises from the people does not eliminate despair. He reorganizes it. He turns it into a map, a guide for where the pain is and where the future must be built. This is how political psychology works in its purest form, not through ideology, but through transformation of emotional energy. Machiavelli knew that people follow the one who can translate their suffering into strategy. A leader who can do this changes the city more deeply than any policy ever could. The fourth change, a new blueprint is created for future leaders. Every rise becomes a precedent, a signal, a silent message to the next generation. This is possible. Legacy is not about who holds power. It's about who feels permitted to try. In New York, permission is revolution. A single victory can inspire hundreds, activists, community organizers, students, outsiders, all suddenly able to imagine themselves in roles they once believed were unreachable. This is not the legacy of an individual. It is the legacy of possibility. Machiavelli wrote that fortune chooses those who are willing to seize opportunities others fear touching. When the city sees that path opened by someone unexpected, it becomes easier for the next one to walk it, and the next, and the next. This is how political ecosystems evolve. This is how power modernizes. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. The final change. The city remembers. New York forgets nothing. Victories are stored like artifacts. Movements become myths. Moments become metaphors that shape how the city interprets future events. A leader's legacy is not simply what they do. It is what the city believes they symbolized. Were they a pivot point? A shift in narrative? A correction to an old injustice? A reminder of the city's diversity, its defiance, its hunger for reinvention? These memories form a shadow, a long shadow that future leaders must walk beneath, either to honor it or to escape it. Machiavelli said every prince is judged, not only by his own actions, but by the failures and successes of those who came before him. Legacy is a burden. But in New York, it is also a foundation. Because once the city sees something new, it can never pretend it didn't. In the end, the city that creates the prince is changed by the prince in return. Asterisk power in New York is not a one-way transformation. It is a loop, a cycle, a dialogue between ambition and environment. The leader adapts to the city. the city adapts to the leader, and between them, a new version of possibility is born. Machiavelli would say this is fortune's true nature. Not random, not cruel, not generous, but responsive. Responding to timing, responding to character, responding to opportunity. And in New York, fortune does not simply change hands, it evolves. Every rise reshapes the city that witnessed it. Every victory rewrites the story of what leadership means. Every legacy becomes the next generation's beginning. And that, in the cold, quiet language of power, is how a city becomes a battlefield and a birthplace at the same time. New York never stops moving. The streets shift. The crowds change. Leaders rise, leaders fall, and the city simply absorbs it all. But if you've stayed until this final moment, then you already sense what most people never notice. Power is not loud. It is not bright. It does not announce itself. Power moves in silence. It hides between emotions. It lives in timing, in perception, in the choices no one sees. And once you understand how the game works, the world begins to look different. You stop watching the headlines and start watching the hands that arrange them. You stop focusing on the speeches and pay attention to the silences between them. You start to see New York not as a city, but as a machine made of influence, identity, and ambition. A battlefield where modern power is shaped in real time. A battlefield where those who understand psychology always stand one step ahead. If this journey made you think differently, if it opened even a small door in your mind, then stay. Keep learning. Keep questioning. Keep sharpening your perception. Because awareness is a rare weapon, and those who carry it cannot be controlled the way others are. Subscribe not for entertainment, but for clarity, for depth, for the quiet advantage that comes from seeing the world as it truly is. This is more than a channel. It is a place for observers, a place for thinkers, a place for people who choose understanding over illusion. If you're ready to keep seeing deeper, walk with us. The battlefield is just beginning to reveal itself.